love to sit and talk about that. My favorite hobby. I added a little bit of stuff. Okay? Because I thought for the record, it should have the full accounting, legislative findings. Let me know when we start.
You're good. It's all you, Madam Chair.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. I call the Subcommittee on Diversity, Inclusion, and Minority Women-Owned Business Enterprise to order. I am delighted to welcome you to the first meeting, our very first meeting of our new subcommittee. We have important work to be done with this committee, and I look forward to working with each of you to bring focus to the important issues of diversity, inclusion, minority, and women-owned business enterprises across the university, with a particular focus on expanding opportunities for students, faculty, staff, and minority and women-owned business enterprises. The university's commitment to academic excellence and to the provision of equal access and opportunity is written in our DNA. Actually, it is written in our enabling statute. And I'd like to read the portion that refers to that. Only the strongest commitment to the special needs of an urban constituency justifies the legislature support of an independent and unique structure for the university. Activities at the City University campuses must be undertaken in a spirit which recognizes and responds to the imperative need for affirmative action and the positive desire to have the City University personnel reflect the diverse communities which comprise the people of the city and state of New York. In the urban environment, communities, in the urban environment, this commitment should be evident in all the guidelines established by the Board of Trustees for the university's operation, from admissions and hiring to contracting for the provisions of goods and services, new construction, facilities, and rehabilitation. The board takes this mandate very seriously, and we have recently restructured our committee to ensure that the university is meeting its commitments. The committee and our work will enable us to examine these efforts and adjust as necessary. As Chair Bill Thompson has made MWBE participation at CUNY and the City University Construction Fund a top priority. Under his leadership, the board has challenged CUNY to strengthen partnerships with minority and women-owned businesses. The Chancellor has responded by increasing engagement with MWBEs as part of a broader effort to expand diversity across the university, but more can be done. MWBE participation will always be among the highest priorities of CUNY, vital to the fulfillment of the university's mission of opportunity for all. The board, through the work of this committee, will also be a shining light on the university's efforts to ensure equal opportunity and access across the university. And of course, it is my intent and this committee's intent to review data above our recruitment and our retention efforts for faculty, staff, and students. We have no action items on the agenda, so I will turn our information items. Information item 1A is the CUNY Supplier Diversity Program. Chief Procurement and Supplier Diversity Officer Martin Sterla will make a presentation on the program.
Madam Chair, before Martin goes, I just want to sort of start, if you don't mind. As I share with the chairwoman regarding this new work that we're doing, we really have taken the approach of relaunching our sort of MWBE work, and part of that work is really to look at how we could better improve that work connected to trying to get more engagement across the university. We've done some overall rebranding of the work. We included, which includes redesigning our webpage to try to create a more, and also try to create a more robust plan to increase participation, with the overall goal of enabling CUNY to really recognize as a leader in supply diversity. We're no way near where I would like us to be. One of the other things that we did was to really try to make sure that we connected both sides of the house when it comes to this particular initiative. One is on the construction side of the house, and also on the area of when it comes to commodities, and making sure that the university was really looking at overall spend power for the university, and to try to see how we could continue to unbundle some of those sort of major contracts to make sure that the minority-owned businesses would be able to take advantage of it. And obviously, I've charged Martin, created a new structure where I have Martin Storloff, put it under Martin Storloff's, so I could report directly to my office and be able to create, put the kind of attention that I believe it needs, but also create a more seamless way to try to approach this work, whether it's on the construction side or the other side of the house. And today we're going to really try to talk to you about the goals and objectives and the KPIs that we're going to be really focused on, and really make sure that we're reporting on our compliant efforts to assure that this committee gets a real flavor for the work that we feel that is important that we're going to take on going forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Martin to really walk you through that process.
Thank you, Mr. Bautista. Thank you, Trustee Wilkins, and everyone. Really appreciate the opportunity. I wanted to share with you what I believe are the challenges that we're addressing, what are we planning on doing, and why. What's the reason behind all this? So the challenge, essentially, we have two distinctive efforts in parallel, CUNY and CUCF. That's, I guess, it's non-standardized process across CUNY, and this is mainly related to employee attrition and turnover, which results in some, disparate practices. The plan is to really rebrand the office, and it's now called Procurement and Supply Diversity Office, and centralize all the practices and the activity in my office, and reporting directly to Mr. Bautista, as he alluded to. And the goal, of course, is to be more proactive in communicating progress and actions. And the ultimate goal is to be recognized as a leader in supply diversity. So there's four initiatives that I'm putting in motion, we're putting in motion. One is the office reorganization and relaunch itself, which involves a webpage redesign and a redefinition of a mission and a statement and strategy. The second big initiative is development of performance metrics and really try to improve processes and streamline processes. The third one being the program marketing itself and the outreach material. And the fourth one and last is technology adoption, which I truly believe is one of the main things that's going to take us to the next level. So on the first one, the reorganization, what I'm showing here is how we are organized internally, and which is essentially we provide guidance and support to both colleges and central office procurement teams. and then how the supplier community engages with us through the website. There's contact information, through the forums and expos that we've been participating in, I will address in a minute, outreach material, brochures, and of course, New York State contract reporter and the city record for projected procurements. Now, as for the office rebranding and the website redesign, this is now live. The office is already being rebranded. The supplier diversity and inclusion tile is the first one. It's the first thing you see when you land on the page. This is continuously be looked at. We try to improve it as much as we can. We really tried, the goal is to make it very easy for people to navigate the page and really make sure that any information that anyone is looking at, whether it's procurement opportunities, contact information, it has to be no more than 2 or 3 clicks away from the landing page. If it is buried underneath that, then it's a problem. So we really are putting a lot of effort in trying to make it a easy navigation. Again, we redefine the mission. We try to be more assertive in communicating what we're trying to accomplish and share with the people what we think it's what we're going with this program. As for the metrics and process improvement, what I wanted to share with you here is what is the process that we're following, and we're trying to make sure there is consistency across the program. How do we define the target and participation goals? And so essentially we have a goal of 30% participation for MWBEs and 6% as the BOBs. I'll share with you in a minute how we're doing, how we're tracking against that. But the rationale essentially is, this is a baseline, this is a starting point. We look at every procurement to see if there's any opportunity to modify, likely increase these goals based on the scope, the availability of vendors in the market that changes. And year over year, there may be vendors in certain categories that before we didn't. So that's something that we're continuously monitoring. And then the structure of historical or similar contracts to define a more specific target. We do audit and do spot checks for POs to ensure compliance. But in all honesty, this is a manual effort, and as such is subject to unintended errors. So the new e-procurement platform that we have implemented, we're in the process implementation rather, it will have built-in a control method so no POs can move forward without proper approval. So if we, for some reason, unintentionally we try to cut a PO to a vendor that has no participation goals, the PO will not be approved and it will not go out to the CUNY. So again, technology is always going to be a key driver for us to drive performance. In terms of numbers, so if we're looking strictly at utilization, I guess the trends are encouraging. CUNY, the trend is positive. It's for the last fiscal year, we slightly above 40%. For CUCF, a little bit below, but all in all, we're reaching the 38-39% percentage. As the BOBs is definitely, we have a lot of work to do. We are not, again, the trend is positive, the end result so far is not. So we really want to put our heads together to see how we can more rapidly bring those numbers up. For the current fiscal year, a few things or highlights. The first 2 quarters of this fiscal year, they show progress. We are still in the in the 38% range and growing, which is encouraging. But I would try to add another perspective, because looking at the utilization and US dollars, it's useful. We have to and we will continue to do that. But there's other things that we want to look at. So how many vendors are we utilizing? Three, or actually 400 is better than 3 or 4 or 5 or a handful. How many POs are we cutting? I mean, of all the POs that we send out, how many of those go to MWBEs or SDBOBs vendors? That's something that we are starting to track. So, and we have plans to incorporate metrics, again, as we develop more technologies that enable us to come up with more metrics, like job created or something that can easily pull that out of the systems. So this is, from a numbers perspective, this is where we are, and I'm very hopeful that this fiscal year we're going to have equally encouraging numbers. And again, I'll be sharing more metrics to look at the program and its performance from another angle. On the program presence and marketing, really, one of the short-term goals was to update and improve the outreach material. I think it's I wanted to give you a sense of the look and feel of the material. It was very well received in the MWBE Forum 2022 last month that we had presence, both UCF and CUNY, and so it was pretty well received by the vendor community, but again, always a work in progress. We purposely include contact names, pictures. We want to be visible to the vendor community. We want them to know who they will or they are dealing with. And so, again, this is always subject to improvement and polishing and refining, but I'm fairly, I would say, happy with the results, at least of this first conference. In terms of events participation, as I mentioned, last month we went to the MWBE Forum. In 2 weeks, or a week and a half actually, we're going to the VetCon and also in Albany. We were sponsors for that. March 2023, we plan on participating in doing business with New York Public Education. And May 2023, we're getting ready for the big event, which is CUNY Supplier Diversity Conference. We're very excited about this. It's the first one that's going to be in person since 2019, and we have really, really high expectations. In terms of technology, which essentially is the last of the 4 big initiatives, I wanted to share with you that the system that I mentioned, CUNY by, this is already live and is available to all colleges and of course central office. We have now a way to look in the system in real time for vendors, minority vendors, whether it's women-owned business, minority-owned business, SDB, OBs, or any classification that we want. These classifications are going to be validated on a daily basis overnight with the state and the city, actually the state, so everything is up to date. The next steps are going to be, and we're working on that already, to add more search features. The reason is because if we want to use a diversity vendor or MWBE, landing on a list of hundreds of suppliers, that doesn't really help much if you're trying to do a specific procurement. So we want to add the capability or functionality rather, of searching by location, by category, by industry, by any other parameter that we want, whether it's a big company or small company or a company that has at least 20 years in the market, or whatever the case may be. This is something that we're working on, and I hope we can, by the end of the fiscal year, we're going to have all those functionalities in the system. And last but not least, as I mentioned, I strongly believe that technology is what separates a fairly mature program from a really solid, mature program. Again, the supplier discovery, location, certification, category, background, all those things are today, we need to make that available for us and to the vendor community. And onboarding and self-registration, and also reporting and program performance. The ultimate goal is for vendors to be able to self-register in our system so they're visible to all the CUNY community. Today, the only way for the vendor to be set up in our systems is we have to invite them, and then they are set up. They submit information and they set up. We want that to be more seamless so anyone can really self-register. And then every vendor hopefully will own their own record within our system so they can put as much information as they can or they want so to improve visibility and information to the buyer community so they can look for a more, I would say, narrowed down search. This is in progress, and I really hope to talk to you about the progress in the next upcoming meetings. So that's all I have for now. Thank you for the opportunity, and happy to take any questions.
Yes, Vice Chair? Trustee?
I just wanted to figure out whether we are putting together a plan. Not everybody is going to be able to read the metrics, but is there a way in which we do education in local communities where our institutions are and where we're looking for minority participation? If you're sophisticated and you know already what to do, you'll do what you need to do. In other communities where it's not as much explicit, then we have to figure out a way in which we're going to make sure that we reach other people who can supply, who can participate. And I may as well tell you, I'm the author of the Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprise. Myself and Councilmember McCaffrey were the co-authors of that with Councilmember from Harlem. So I kind of been nursing ways in which to get participation in local communities where the doors are not always open, and even if the doors are open, people don't know how to enter into the door to get things done. And if we're going to be truly committed to what we're trying to do here, we're going to have to find ways in which to educate businesses, community, craftsmen, skills person, whatever it is we need to let them know that they too have an opportunity to bid, to be part of. So I would propose that when you launch it, we launch it with a community education component where we have our 26 institutions so that local businesses in those communities can know that there may be opportunity for them to participate.
So I'm going to first take a crack at this first and then
I don't want to give you any trouble, you know that.
No. No, I appreciate, and I do remember when you introduced that legislation when you were at the City Council. Look, I think this is a multifaceted kind of approach. Number one is the campuses have a responsibility in the local community to really drive this whole notion of diversity and inclusion, right? So for example, in CUNY BUY, one of the things that we have made sort of part of the whole CUNY BUY, which is, our sort of mini Amazon kind of situation, right? Is to try to create 25% of the spend, right? That is spent at a local level. So the campus has a discretion of 25% of those to be able to be spent driven at the local level. I think that this has to be a coordinated effort between the central office providing information to the campuses and then really creating
information on education.
Information to the campuses, and then the campuses working with us will provide the education part of it, right? Because as you say, all politics are local, all community stuff are local. So we need to drive that. It can't be driven from we set the tone from a central office, and we need to hold the campuses responsible for doing this thing, but it really has to be driven at a local level, and want to make sure that happens. So to answer your overall questions, yes, we will come on a plan, but I want to make sure that the importance of the local campuses driving that work through help from the central office is really the way to sort of set that up. I don't know if you want to.
No, yes, thank you, Mrs. Batista. I second what you said. The only thing I wanted to add is that I did have a couple of preliminary conversations with the small business development centers that we have. And so they have a lot of traction and communication with the local MWBEs and SWBEs communities. So we're trying to find a way to leverage that communication and maybe drive some training and support, very specific, whether it's webinars or in-person or tutorials or whatever it is, to teach them really. It's a large community, so we have about 10,000 vendors in New York State, registered vendors. So it's tough to reach them out, to them all, but using the leverage of SDBs, Cs and the website, and as Mrs. Batista mentioned, work on the ground at the colleges level. I think all those three things combined, it'll definitely have an impact. But I'm really happy to put something more formal together for the next
And I want to add one other point, I think, which is important. Us working with the local chambers of commerce, right? I think, in each of the boroughs there's a chamber of commerce that you really focus on driving sort of that work at not only at a borough-wide level. I think it's something that Trustees Wilkins has communicated with me about. I think also really creating that mandate for the campuses. You have, it is required for you to do these educational forums multiple times a year, right? And a report back on what that sort of yielded and provide information. So I think it's, but at the greater point, we will come to you with a plan that will, but I wanted to make sure that there was a balance on how I believe the campuses at a local level need to own that responsibility with the support of the central office.
Trustee Kim?
Oh, I didn't raise my hand, but I did have a question. You read my hand. So, thank you for the presentation. I'm just curious as to, when you say this technology, could you please just go back to that other slide? In the creation of this, have you also had conversations with the city certified program? Because, at SBS, we have an online directory that was revamped as well during the pandemic, and it's actually, I don't know, is this actually a snapshot of what we have currently?
Yes.
Because I think the website, if you look at it, it's been honed in so that you can actually punch in borough and type of equipment. It just looks a lot more advanced than this, so I'm wondering if there were conversations that happened.
Yes, we have in fact speak with the supplier of the software, which in turns they have communication with both the city and the state. So they incorporate that into the system. What we're looking at now is not the finished product though. We went live with I would say it's not entirely complete, and those two aspects are in the next phase of the implementation. So we hope to have, as I mentioned, much more robust search engines. Today, it's limited. But to Trustee...
When you say next phase, you mean like in the final product? Or
yes.
Like
No, the final product. It should be completed by the end of the fiscal year. Right, the phases, the first phase was the vendor portal, which is this one, and the contracts module. Then the second phase is going to be the ERFX or the solicitation module. And the last one is going to be the requisitions to pay module, the full suite. But the connection with the city and the state is something that we couldn't do in the first phase, so it's going to be delayed until the third phase.
And when is that?
Eventually, that's July 1st, 2023, at the beginning of the next fiscal year.
Right. I'm just, the reason why I said that is because you mentioned SBDCs and you said 10,000 certified, but just in the city alone, we have almost 11,000 certified MWBEs. So I would assume that the state number would be much greater than 11,000. So then I just was a little concerned because you didn't raise anything about the city, but just the state. And if we're working with the state, obviously that's the one place to go. what's happening in the MWBE world is there's a lot of conversations right now, and the reason why I think you need to have the same kind of conversations, not with SBDCs, but with our SBS's MWBE office, is because we're having all these discussions right now about a common portal, for example, for state and city. We're also talking about reciprocity. You know, the state has a little bit of a backlog right now, and so we're working together to try to move that along. But then, you know, you want to be able to just access, right? If you're looking for the database of companies, I think you want to make sure that we're included in the conversation, because we're doing, I think, in many ways, locally especially, as much as the state is. So if you just, because I'm looking at this and I don't, it just might be a snapshot, but I don't see any certification for NYC certified firms. You just have all like state certified. And maybe it's just a page that you have, but.
So we,
I think we had worked out during my time, the state certify you, you don't need the city to certify, and if the city certifies you, you don't necessarily need the state certification.
Not yet. We're still working on it.
That, yeah.
That's how it should be, but they haven't gotten to that.
I thought we finished that during my time.
Well,
Almost,
yeah,
but
just to review where, and the, both trustee Clark, our vice chair, and trustee Kim, one, the experience and the knowledge that is here, that we have, is a tremendous insight and opportunity to really get the MWBE, get the MWBE technology where it needs to go, and knowing that if there are any advancements to that, because what we see in the community, one is, the very first thing is to have where they can get access, and often that access is through a website, and what information they are imparting in it. And often when you see a website, as you indicated, to be difficult or not having enough information, limits the opportunities that are there for the MWBEs, and to incorporate both the city, and if you look at the city's website and the city firms, that's also a really good place for us to be able to coordinate with, because many of the city firms are here and want to do business, and probably a good number of them are there at this time.
So, I mean, I just wanted to confirm it, because I actually thought I was right in this, but I wanted to confirm it. The problem we have is we have to follow state. So the reason why that is created the way it is because and when it comes to MWE and reporting, because of the way sort of the CUNY charter is written, we have to follow the sort of that state mandate. Doesn't mean they can't change. I'm just telling you why because I thought there was a reason why it wasn't there.
Yeah, I think if you're following the state charter will say what? That you have to follow the state certification rules? Mm-hmm. And so
yeah,
you wouldn't include any that are city certified that are also not state certified? I think the only thing then I would ask is to, as you do your next phase in the technology side, I think you can still note that it is also NYC certified, can't you? Because all of them will have, only the ones that are also state certified, because there's a big overlap.
Yeah, I believe that we can. I mean, it's unfortunate that you get to see a snapshot, because this meeting, we're actually launching it in a week, right? We have 2 weeks? When are we launching?
the marketplace is next Monday.
Next Monday, so you'll be able to see something a little bit more long.
Okay.
And then the second phase of it is happening sometime in
Yeah, I think it's just a
February,
feedback,
March.
because I think
Yeah,
if you're able to
but it's a
see
point
it-
well taken, it's something
But
to look at.
if you're able to see, if I'm in CUNY school and I want to support, but I also see that they're NYC certified, I know that at least.
Yeah, the
Closer to
system, just to confirm, will display all of the certification that the suppliers have, whether it's state, city, or some other state.
Right, that's it, yeah, if that's.
They're gonna be showing
Yeah, I-
right there.
Done, yep.
We'll put that on the next agenda and
Yep.
make sure that there's further
Of course.
discussion
I
about that.
think we need to explore with the state and the city, is there a way in which we can have reciprocity in terms of if you have certification in one, whether we can get them to accept the certification of the other, because we were well along that way during my time. And I'm out of the city council some 20 odd years. So it means that either we just start something, then we drop it aside and we restart, and then nothing gets moving. So I think that we need to explore. We have a lot of legal minds around the table, and you ought to be able to research and let us know. Can we pursue, even if it's just CUNY, the city and the state, as an exception to policy?
Something we'll take a look at, but I think as Trustee Kim alluded to, is really something the city and the state need to sort of drive that on behalf. I know that when
Just trying to get the bureaucracy out of your mind a little bit.
I know, but I'm trying to, but it's not within our lane of something that we could move forward. We definitely are supportive
Yeah,
of
let's see
it.
what we can explore.
Yeah, just to give it that point is that the landmark decision that the Trustee Clark and wonderful former Councilman Walter McCaffrey were able to establish was under local law, what was called 1129, and then local law 1 of 2013, which is actually the landmark decision that many other cities now follow for their procurement. With that, we also, of course, have 15A, which we're guided by in terms of our procurement for the MWBEs. But this discussion, I think, as the Trustee Clark said, has been ongoing in terms of having that relationship, and it's out there, and it is. And it does happen at various agencies for us to consider being able to do that. With that is that maybe also that there could be a consideration to have a dashboard so that we can look at the data that comes in to see, and avail ourselves
Yes, of course.
of seeing how we're proceeding in that regard. And just to make sure that there's the one point, we now have legislation in New York State that increased the discretionary funds that we can allow for, that we now have for firms, that we don't have to go necessarily on certain procurement, go through the stringent a bidding process that we have, and if we can look into that for the goods and services, to procure.
Yes, of course.
Any other questions at this time, or? But given that, just to thank the chairman and thank the chancellor and of course our what we now have to have as very opportunities to really develop and be very innovative is a great opportunity here for the MWBEs.
Thank you.
And I know our diversity officer, Morgan Sterling, put a lot of effort into getting us where we are, and now to be able to see how to advance that, along with our COO and Vice Chancellor Hector Batista. So thank you.
Thank you.
And the many conversations that we will continue to have and the committee will have on this. We'll now move to information item. 1B is CUNY faculty demographics. Vice Chancellor for Human Resources, Ms. Gloria, will provide further information.
Thank you.
It's on the laptop where Martin is.
So before Dorianne starts, I want to just give a couple of, as you're aware, the university is committed to having and sustaining a diverse and inclusive workforce. In addition to identify initiatives that will advance the diversity goals, we are working in ways to better facilitate system-wide collection of and exchanging of data that will inform our recruitment, retention strategies, and to use technology to help provide up-to-date, real-time demographics to our. It is important that we can report this information internal and externally across multiple platforms to all our stakeholders to make sure that everyone is aware of what the university is committed to. Today, I think Dorianne I know is going to really provide a report today connected to a three-year workforce demographic report. We'll provide an overview about the wide diversity and inclusion initiatives that we have undertaken under her leadership. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dorianne.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me today. I want to focus on, as Secretary said, one of the many reports that University Human Resources does produce, and also to just give you an update on some of the programs that are currently in play. So the first report that I want to share with you, and I'm just going to share some excerpts because these are all very long reports, but this one is one of my personal favorites because I think it is a really good reference tool, and it shows a lot of different things and a lot of different slices. So this one is available online, as many of the things that we produce are. So you can find it at our Human Resources website. You could find it at our Office of Recruitment and Diversity website as well. This report is based on data that is pulled every year in November. So next time we can look at the more current report that will by then be completed. And I would say that while this represents the most popular way of looking at our data, there are certain external organizations, and including the federal government, that sometimes requires us to report in slightly different categories. As you know, we have Italian Americans, for example, that are included in the group, and you'll see them here, whereas you may not see them in some of the other things that we provide. So just to give you an example here, we collect the data that you see here during job application and hire, and then periodically after that, employees may change their information in employee self-service at any time. And this chart shows us, for example, the overall net change, including both hires and separations that took place each year. So overall change in staffing occurred due to many factors over these last few years, including things like COVID, the budget, reduced enrollment, et cetera. And so you can see that we are down overall 4.7% and a total of 676 heads in this particular category. And you also see that we have Italian American here, and that particular category is not included in white for this particular purpose. And then you see under total minority in that gray bar all of the categories that are listed underneath that. To give you an idea, and I know this is hard to read on this screen, but it looks a whole lot better when you go to the website, but this is a breakdown of the actual categories that are under instructional staff. And you'll see, of course, we have our full-time faculty, executive compensation plan, higher education officers, and then other instructional staff as well. Still in the same section of the report, now we're looking at classified staff. Similar situation, down 9%, about 532 heads, and the categories are broken out exactly the same way. And the groups that make up this chart include white collar, blue collar, our stage and theater group, and the skilled trades. So I'm just going to show you an example of faculty. This kind of chart exists for every single grouping within the report, but as you can see, it can get pretty detailed. What I want to point out on this particular one is that while total numbers went down, what's interesting is that percentage-wise, the decrease in minority faculty is much less than the decrease in Italian American and white faculty at 5.2% and 6.5% respectively. So even though our overall numbers went down, our minority representation went up because we had fewer of them exiting the organization. There could be many things that might explain that. I would like to think that it's partially because this is a welcome and comfortable place for people in this category, and that might be part of the explanation, but it is an interesting outcome. And this is strictly professoriate that you're looking at here. And you'll see the 3 years from 19, 20, and 21, and then in the different categories within the professoriate title. And then again for the non-professoriate, and again similarly, in some ways even more so, minorities are down 2.7% as compared to whites down almost 10% and Italian Americans down over almost 22%. So again, the density of minority representation went up, even though overall numbers of heads across the board went down. This is not from that report. This is a sort of hot off the press piece for you that I thought you might be interested in. As you know, we had an initiative to hire 250 lecturers. We actually had 255. And we've been looking at this data now and sort of slicing it and dicing it a couple of different ways. But I pulled this one out because I thought you would find it interesting. And I think the good story here is that on the STEM lecturer side, male-female is almost exactly split. 50-50. This is unusual. Typically we see that women are much lower representation in the STEM area, so I think that's a great story there. And similarly, honestly, with minority as well, often we see an underrepresentation there, and here we do not see it. They make up 48.6% of the total number of lecturers, but they actually make up almost 54% of the STEM lecturers. So it was an interesting story that came out with STEM, so I thought I would share that with you while we're still going through the rest of the lecturers' data. I'm just going to switch from data for a moment and talk a little bit about programs. By the way, someone mentioned dashboard. We do have a diversity dashboard, and if anyone would like to get access to it, just let me know and we can arrange that. It is in real time, and it again slices and dices things in a lot of different ways, more so than any sort of stagnant report could possibly capture. So I want to go through these 4 programs that are in play right now. And we're going to start with the Diversity Conference. We're currently accepting proposals for a 6th biennial conference on inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. It's a 2-day event that will take place in March 30th and March 31st. At the Graduate Center, we're hoping to have a return to an in-person event, fingers crossed. And the theme is the illusion of inclusion, collaborative solutions for performative diversity. Bell Hooks, you may recall her, former CCNY Distinguished Professor of English, has described education as a practice of democracy and freedom, emphasizing that when we learn together, we learn best, and this reflects the theme of the 2023 conference. It was formerly known as the CUNY Faculty Diversity and Inclusion Conference, or FDIC, but it's been rebranded because we're moving beyond compositional diversity of race and gender to now focus on both equity and access. But also, we are broadening the base, so it was always focused on faculty, but now it will be focused on faculty, staff, and students. And so now it is called CUNY Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access, or CIDEA. And we're really looking forward to that. The Faculty Fellowship Publication Program, you may be aware of, it is celebrating its 25th year. This is a mentoring program. It is a signature program of the university. It assists full-time untenured faculty in writing projects, essential for reappointment, tenure, and promotion. We've had a lot of success stories coming out of there. Pre-pandemic, this program supported 60 participants. Unfortunately, that had a fall to 40 during 20 and 21, but we are now back up to 50 mentees being accepted into the current year program, and we'll be kicking that off December 2nd, I believe. The University Advisory Council on Diversity. This was established in 1970, and although it has a faculty bent, it consists of largely faculty members. It does have some CDOs and some human resources staff from the Office of Recruitment and Diversity in it as well. It was established in 1970 by the CUNY Board of Trustees, and it's charged with advising the Chancellor on ways to deepen the university's commitment to creating and sustaining an inclusive workforce. It solicits the views of the university on all aspects of diversity, and it identifies initiatives or programs that can advance diversity goals. And it identifies, perhaps most importantly, potential barriers to achieving greater diversity and inclusion. And it also functions as a think tank and a support group for people who are writing about the topic, and it has, I'd say, evolved quite a bit over the number of years that it has been around. And most recently, we have put together, and we are in testing for this right now. This is a CUNY-wide discrimination and retaliation reporting portal. It was developed in partnership with CIS, OGC, and Marketing and Communications. It also received input from Student Affairs, Chief Diversity Officers, and the Chancellor's Executive Committee. It will replace all of the forms of electronic reporting currently in use at the campuses for this particular purpose. It will be a publicly available form, so it will be used for employees, for students, for visitors. Anonymous complaints will be accepted as well. And once submitted, the reports will go into a database and routed to each campus's CDO and their president. And this will be an opportunity for the presidents to have new visibility into the complaints that are coming in, and also to have regular reporting that will be handled by the Chief Diversity Officers, and on a central level, we will be able to see across the university, and we'll also be able to report university-wide to the Chancellor. So HR will have employee complaints, and Student Affairs will have staff complaints, and we'll be able to put them together to get really a holistic view. We're hoping it drives accountability, because the tool will be easy to use, and we think that people will be more likely to file a complaint if they need to. One of the things that we've learned or heard is that people didn't always know where to go, or they wanted to submit something, but they just didn't know how to do it. This is not the only way. If people do not want to use this, they can email their CDO, et cetera, and then the CDO will enter it into the database for that person. So as I said, we're testing it right now, and we expect a release of it later this month if all goes well. That's my report. Any
Thank you.
questions or comments? Thank you again.
Very informative. Questions? Any other discussion? So, given that the details that you provided on the demographics, it does have an opportunity to show where we need to place our efforts, and that's always very, very helpful. So thank you for that. We're up to information item 1C is the draft committee charter.
So given the hour and that we are behind, if anybody has any comments, just be sure to get them to me, and we will we'll address them. But we are behind, so.
Yeah. So with that, so as the secretary of our board has indicated, to review and get comments going forward. So with that, with no more items on the agenda, I move to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.